I'm Regina Barr, speaker, coach, and consultant, and founder and CEO of Red Ladder Inc. and the Women at the Top Network. Welcome to Spot On with Regina Barr and our program today on emotional intelligence. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Deb Sandella, PhD, RN, and #1 international best-selling author of Goodbye Hurt and Pain and 7 Simple Steps to Health, Love, and Success. Creator of RIM, an unprecedented organic technique to quickly shed toxic emotions from your body. Endorsed by the New York Times bestselling authors Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, she has been covered in USA Today and appeared on CBS, NBC, Fox, and CNN. Please help me welcome Dr. Deb Sandella. Well, I am so excited to have you here and to be talking about this topic on emotional intelligence. It's something that I think is so important when we look at the workforce of today. And so I'd like to start out by just asking for our viewers if you could define what emotional intelligence is.
Well, in very simple terms, emotional intelligence is being in touch with your own feelings and the feelings of others enough to be very effective in your communication and your persuasive ability.
You know, and that's what's so critical, I think, today. 99% of the time, if I am working with an individual, an organization, almost always communication issues come up as an issue if they are experiencing challenges in the workplace. So I think that's really critical, as you're pointing out. So from your perspective, why is emotional intelligence so important from a professional standpoint for people?
Well, we know statistically that 90% of the high performers are high EQ or high emotional intelligence. We also know that a team's profitability increases by 20% or decreases by 20%, depending on if the leader is highly emotionally intelligent. So these outcomes tell us that the way we navigate the corporate business that we're working, in wherever we are in our lives, that it influences both professionally and personally whether we're successful or not.
So that's really interesting because I hadn't thought of it quite that way, right? So our emotional intelligence is important for our success, right? But the emotional intelligence of our leader, boss, supervisor is also going to influence our success. So kind of a new twist on how to think about that. So, we talk about this concept of emotional intelligence. How do we know when we see it? What does it look like?
Well, I think you do really feel it right away. When you see someone react like a child, then they're not in their emotionally intelligent part of their brain at that point, especially in the work setting. Now at home, there's probably greater leeway in terms of relationships there. But what happens is when we allow that emotional part of us to go to just react, that we're really bringing the little kid in us that is having a temper tantrum or feels dejected or personalizes things, that starts to show up. So then our relationships are, all start to be influenced and sometimes damaged. And also our results just aren't as good when we're in our emotional brain.
So that's interesting because what you're saying is that I would guess that most of us, including our viewers, would recognize someone who is deficient in emotional intelligence, right? So we all probably could name someone or share a story, like you said, where somebody's acting out or we're seeing something happen. So what's interesting is that a lot of these people somehow, in spite of themselves, move ahead in the corporate realm or in the professional realm. How can you explain that?
Well, yes, that is true, that there are some people that are very driven and really push their way up and, surround themselves with yes people because they want control. And so it really helps them rise into success. It also is the reason they frequently fall. and have a collapse because they're not receiving feedback from the people around them. They're not empathic in terms of sensing what another perspective is other than their own. Because, two of the biggest qualities present in emotional intelligence are self awareness and also empathy, being able to appreciate how somebody else might feel, looking from a different perspective. When you have those two things, it's a really good foundation. So when either of those are lacking, you're really, even though you may be getting very successful, you're leaving yourself very vulnerable for a bust, so to speak.
Well, we certainly don't want that to happen, right? So let's say that we are recognizing either in ourselves that we may be deficient in terms of our emotional intelligence, or maybe we're coaching someone. How can we develop our emotional intelligence?
Well, one of the things that's really important is to develop whole brain function. So, in our culture, we've tended to approach everything from the left brain, analytically, to think things through, to use willpower to control our feelings. Unfortunately, that is only successful to a degree, and it doesn't stop that emotional reaction because, in the end, when the emotional reaction is stimulated, when that part of the brain senses danger, it goes off. So, we need to actually be connected with the emotional self first so that we can identify through the body, like, what am I feeling, and allow it. So when we sense what we're feeling and we allow it, it actually starts automatically to dissipate. So when we sit in that, whatever kind of initial emotional reaction we have, if we allow it, name it, just rest in it, it starts to really dissipate. Then we can bring our left brain ability in to sense, now, how does this relate to what my goal is here in this situation, whether it's a personal relationship or whether it's a project or a work relationship, that what is it in my best interest here to be able to, what kind of communication or action really makes sense at this point. So now we're operating with a whole brain perspective.
You know, what you're saying, I think, really resonates, particularly with women. And, when you think about emotional intelligence, you would think that women would be standout performers when it comes just to the emotional intelligence. What gets in their way?
Well, women do have, they really score higher on those soft skills like empathy, compassion, inclusiveness. So we have women, as women, we have very high affiliation skills and also needs. And that is a strength, and any strength overdone becomes a weakness, as we know. So that our need for inclusiveness can stop us from actually taking credit for what we've done because we're wanting to share it with the team or share it with others to make sure that we're including everyone.
Well, I think that's great to point out because we certainly don't want women tripping themselves up. So, Dr. Deb, we are winding down on our time today. What's a couple of tips that you could give our viewers today?
Well, I would say, the three steps that I suggest when we're talking about emotional intelligence is dip, see, do. That in moment to moment throughout the day, to dip down into your body to sense what you're feeling. It's just like breathing, like feelings are flowing through us constantly. So dip down in, sense what this emotional breath feels like, and allow it. And then you get to shift your attention to what is the action that needs to be taken now. And so it's really not difficult. And the more that we build it in as a way of moving through our day, the easier it is. The quicker emotion comes in, we learn from it, and then it evaporates just naturally, very easily. So it doesn't get stuck, doesn't hang around.
Great. Well, that's all the time that we have today. I do want to thank you, Dr. Deb, for being here with us. I've learned so much from you today and loved hearing your thoughts on emotional intelligence. And for our listeners, I want to say thank you so much for joining us for another program of Spot On with Regina Barr. And I hope that you'll like, share, and comment and let us know what we can be doing to help you be even more effective in the workplace. I'm Regina Barr, speaker, coach, and consultant, and I look forward to hearing from you.